I'm just sharing this from that's been brought to my attention by George Galloway. I mean, it's really serious, and it is shredding the Magna Carta and human rights. You know, let's remember the Magna Carta was shredded really with enclosure when suddenly people were no longer allowed to hunt and forage across the land. But so it is human rights that are being shredded here in modern day terms, and it's about the people who've been charged as were branded terrorists by the British government for their actions to stop the genocide in Gaza, which, according to international law, are valid, though whether that includes damage to property, you know, there can be an argument against that, for which they've already received, served their time in prison, which was 6 months, but many of them serving over a year in really terrible conditions, and many of them going on hunger strike and there were attempted suicides as well. And so it transpires that the government's appealed against that, so there's a sort of retrial, and secretly the judge has been told that, well, the judge has agreed that if the Palestine Action defendants are found guilty of criminal damage by the jury, they will be sentenced as terrorists. And this was secret. It was deliberately kept secret from the press. Well, the press knew, and obviously the police knew as well, you see, because this is why suddenly the police started arresting people, pensioners carrying placards saying, "I support Palestine Action" again. And so obviously this was an inside thing that the police knew, the judge knew, the government knew, but the people of Britain were to be kept in the dark, including the defendants and the jury. You see, so the jury, on finding them guilty of criminal damage, then suddenly they get sentenced as terrorists. It is astounding as to the level of power that Zionists have in Britain as an independent sovereign nation. Are we an independent sovereign nation? Isn't that why we had Brexit, apparently? Because we wanted to become an independent sovereign nation and free from dictatorship Brussels. That was, to all intents and purposes, only influencing Britain in as much as Britain was expected to abide by EU law in terms of human rights and children's rights, this country having repeatedly failed to uphold and establish, actually, EU child protection directives, which work as a legal machine to prevent crimes, to protect children and prevent crimes against them. And in the EU child protection directives, onus of proof of innocence is on the suspects, whereas in Britain, onus of proof of guilt is on the children, who can be dismissed as incredible. Their crime reports can be dismissed as incredible, regardless of whether or not the children make good witnesses. And that itself is outrageous when the EU and the UN have stated that every child makes a good witness because onus of proof of innocence is on the suspects, which means that every time a child reports abuse, there's no thoughts as to whether the child of investigating the child, which happens in Britain, immediately the suspects are arrested in the interest of protecting and preventing crimes against children, because the imbalance of power between suspect and the child is recognised, and under EU child protection directives, every child reporting crimes against them, or every child even being taken into custody by police, has a right to an independent legal guardian, you see, of which Britain's children get none. And before police start investigating a case, then the first thing they do is have a strategy meeting that involves the school and social services and CAFCAS from the family courts. And that, again, is outrageous. I mean, because they talk about privacy for children, and, you're not allowed to discuss the crime reports or talk about it to anybody or name any suspects. Okay, that is all forbidden. And yet, before the police have even investigated the crime report, teachers are involved at the children's school, social services and CAFCAS officers. Why? I mean, it's absolutely terrible, especially in light of the fact that we know that, any authority that's involved with rescuing children and protecting them is regularly infiltrated by paedophiles who are not recognised as paedophiles because they've never been caught. So, background checks and stuff like that are meaningless because arrest rates in Britain are just extremely low. So it is outrageous. It is outrageous to find that not only are they doing that, they are having there's a secret memo going around, like, obviously to the police that, yeah, look, you can go and arrest these people now because this is all going, they are going to be sentenced as terrorists, and anybody supporting them then immediately will be terrorists. And all these pensioners that have been arrested may be and freed initially, may be rearrested and also sentenced as terrorists because they're supporting terrorists. And it is an extremely punitive, vindictive ruling in light of what we know now is a genocide. Okay, according to the facts of evidence, 680,000 people and children are now missing from Gaza. 680,000. And I will leave a link to that under this. Francesca Albanese has talked about it, has recognised the reality of it. We've been massively underinformed about the deaths of people and children in Gaza, about the horrors that they're experiencing. And now, we can only call it a Holocaust. Now, is that anti-Semitic to say that? Does the word Holocaust only belong to, only apply to Jews? Is it a uniquely Jewish thing that only Jews can suffer a Holocaust, but not Palestinians who are just being rounded up? We've seen the mass graves, even with people shot dead and the hands are tied behind the back, so they weren't posing any threat. They'd been captured, abducted really, and it includes medics, journalists, you name it. just innocent citizens struggling to survive in Gaza, rounded up, any people rounded up, and then shot and buried it in these mass graves, and then even more of them filling Israeli prisons, all branded terrorists, just by the fact that they're Palestinian, even children, and now they're all facing the death sentence. That's a Holocaust. It's a Holocaust in the making. And to the extent that a judge in Britain can be corrupted to basically issue an illegal sentence when a jury has convicted people of criminal damage, but that should be overturned. That should be actually terrorism. When they're sentenced, the judge is going to sentence them as terrorists. How does that work? This is a huge violation of British citizens' civil and human rights in terms of justice, access to justice, because that isn't justice, is it? That's not justice. That's deceit, because then a jury is then being asked to sentence people, find people guilty in order for them to be sentenced as terrorists. How does it work? How does it work? I don't understand why the British public are not outraged by this. I can't understand it, because it's so serious. It is deadly serious, because once that precedent has been applied, that a jury can convict somebody of one crime, okay, but actually on sentencing, the defendants are going to be actually convicted of another crime, an even worse crime. It's like somebody being prosecuted for, say, assaulting somebody, and the jury find them guilty of assault, but then the judge sentences them for murder. It's that serious. It is that serious. And it is a ruthless coup that then is happening within the British legal system. How far are we going to let this go as a nation? Because, once these things are set, it is a precedent in law that completely erodes our rights to justice. And then you can understand then, Keir Starmer, a human rights lawyer, that's the irony of it, wants to remove juries entirely. Wants juries gone. Which is, again, that is a very, very serious, deadly threat against the British public. And it is a denial of our human rights. It is actually a terrorist threat. It is. It's a terrorist threat. If there are no juries, you're basically looking at what? A tribunal. It is equivalent to martial law, where no matter what you've done, whether you're guilty or not, a judge who is affiliated directly with hostile forces, and I think at this point we have to consider MI6 as a hostile force. And I really, it really disturbs me. I loathe to say it. I loathe to say that. But in face of the evidence, what else can I say? Looking at the levels to which this country's sovereignty has been absolutely trashed, to the extent that our own government is effectively a quisling government, that it is prepared to deny its own citizens' human rights to a fair trial and justice on behalf of a state whose leader is a wanted war criminal by the International Court of Justice, to which this country is signed. We can only fathom then that what's happening in Gaza is soon to happen against the British people, who are known to be by majority in support of the people of Palestine to have their own lawfully recognised state, which is actually internationally lawfully recognised, the state of Palestine, but not by Britain, who is thinking about it. And we've got Keir Starmer just blatantly lying about his engagement in the war against Iran and his engagement with the military actions, the criminal military actions of Israel in Gaza and now the West Bank, to which the British government has really said very little. There is no Hamas in the West Bank. What's happening is terrorism against the citizens of the West Bank. Terrorism and theft of land and property, and the criminal destruction of their farms, olive trees, vineyards, all uprooted. And now, Israel's being attacked by millions of bees. Well, what did they expect when they are tearing away the bees' homes? Because we need to understand that war, it isn't just an attack against the people of a nation. It is actually also an attack against the nature and ecology of that nation. You see? Because it isn't, bees are being bombed. Creatures, wildlife. It's all being decimated. It's the story of Amalek, isn't it? Not a blade of grass shall survive. Every creature shall die. Every baby stamp on them. This is what we're witnessing. A horror from thousands of years ago now being visited in real time in the 21st century on living people, on the people of Palestine, on the people of the West Bank, the people of Gaza, the people of Syria, the people of Iraq previously, and now also the people of Lebanon. And, it isn't, they talk about this as it is an attack against Muslims from the Semitic people of Israel, because the Muslims are beasts and monsters and they want to kill every single Israeli, which is not true. Because there are many Israelis that do not support this war, that do not support Zionism and its crimes, which are incredible in a world that said never again after World War II. And how many people are standing up for the law? It isn't about which side you take. Oh, well, I can understand Israel's actions, 40 beheaded babies, which we found out was a lie. But then people are still in line with that lie. Because the idea that it was a lie almost becomes a conspiracy theory when, even with the evidence, the facts, the bare facts of evidence out there in full public knowledge, British ministers will get up in Parliament and we're still talking about it. We're still talking about the headed babies and 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 the rapes and the baby cooked in an oven, which all turned out to be fake news. But now they have control, obviously then, of MI6. It is absolutely astounding. I mean, somebody like me who's spoken out blatantly before and after Israel's recent actions, you know, from October 7th, you know, my life is at risk. There's no two ways about it. Maybe it'll be made to look like I've committed suicide. You know, I mean, I can't say that I don't think regularly about suicide. I've got chronic complex PTSD. But all my life, I fight against those thoughts for the sake of humanity, for the sake of our children. Because, you know, if you feel like ending your life, then actually you might as well, why not use your life then to try and make the world a better place rather than end your life? Because then hate wins, doesn't it? I'm not saying that everybody who ends their life is a hateful person, and you know, but I'm just saying in my case, because of what I understand, that, well, I'd rather stay alive as long as possible to shine my light as long as possible, even though hardly anybody listens to me, or mostly I'm judged. I'm judged because I am apparently cringeworthy. Well, I don't care if being a raw, natural human being, an unpolished gem, as it were, then I would rather be, you know, dismissed as cringeworthy than do nothing at all. And, you know, all those people judging me, they don't come forward to help me, to spread the light. And after an experience of mine, like mine, which I did experience, universal light being, and how dare anybody choose to use that to judge me mad and then dismiss me, when those same people, you know, are there around the Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury, or, you know, talking about their faith. But apparently only people from thousands of years ago are allowed to have experiences like the one I had. Only people in the Bible are allowed to have an experience as I had, that was an extremely profound experience. And I'm talking about it now very, very loudly because it has to apply. That experience and the message it gave of universal law of abundance and compassion has to apply now. It needs to apply now in a world where those same biblical stories reporting similar types of experiences from enlightened people like Jesus and Isaiah, and also from the Quran like Prophet Muhammad, the last prophet. Okay. They're using those. They're using the same biblical stories to support the idea that Israel can be above the law because they are God's chosen people. So who is God then? Is God the alleged Lord who told the people of Israel to go and slaughter every living thing for the people of Amalek? Is that God? The evil God of Revelations, a completely fictitious book, actually, that ought never to be included in the Bible, that is actually a criminal plagiarization of the original Testament prophecies and twisted to actually support the rise of Lucifer, the bright and morning star. I mean, it's pretty simple. Go and look at it. It should never have been included in the Bible. And yet that story is now a blueprint for evangelists and the Zionists, who all want to see that prophecy fulfilled, despite the fact that God gave us free will. I mean, it's just natural intelligence, isn't it, to understand that, look, God gave you free will. He sent the prophet Jonah, really forced him to deliver a really terrible prophecy, which was actually a warning to the people of Nineveh because they were behaving so criminally, that they were warned about what their criminal actions would ultimately amount to. And they were so terrified, they begged God not to fulfill that prophecy and decided to live lawfully. And so the prophecy didn't happen. And Jonah was upset. And God explained, well, you know, there was no need for all that to happen because the people changed. And actually, they couldn't have changed without you going and warning them about what was going to happen to them if they carried on the way they were. And I suppose, you know, what we need to realise today is that, yes, revelations is what you get when you believe in liars, when you don't check things out, when you just accept gutter press headlines and propaganda. When you get people who create, who actually write a consciousness that writes such terrible things, not as a warning, but no, this is going to happen, this is what God's going to do. Okay? When they aren't even talking about God, they're talking about the devil and his gang of paedophiles. But we do have a prophecy, a way forward, a good prophecy from Isaiah, who equally warns people about what will happen if we continue living in a criminal way on this planet, but also hope that all we need to do if we want to avoid the horrors of life that can be visited upon us when we put criminals into power and just accept their criminal policies, okay? All we need to do is follow the needs of a little child, be led by the needs of our children. That's all we need to do. You want to stop this? You know, you can go and protest and do whatever you like to try and stop these criminals, okay, to fight against them. But the only thing that is going to work is when we stand up for our human rights and when we stand by the needs of our children. When we think of the children first. And that includes the children of our enemies. All children. Their needs are what comes first. And that's what we need to be doing, is holding the authorities to account concerning the needs of our children, who are not a minor concern. We need that word minor removed from that legal judgment against our children as unimportant, trivial human beings. We need it removed, erased from the law, because our children are the most important people as developing human beings, as the future of our species. And that's why the world is upside down, because the children are judged minor. And I'm begging you people out there to stop judging me and to listen and to accept the validity of what I'm saying. And also accept the fact that I am guided, genuinely guided by universal light. Intelligence, quantum energy intelligence. And that intelligence is eternal. It shines like stars from the wheat in, what would you say, ancient historical texts of human that share human consciousness and thoughts and experiences of those times. That lie does not die. The people that had those experiences, the people that wrote it down, their bodies have gone, but the light of true intelligence, that eternal golden light, never dies. And it's still there today, shining like stars around everybody's head, if people are prepared to just accept reality, accept the truth. The truth will set us free. The truth is that we need to put the children first of every single nation, and that includes the children of Zionists and whoever. Because the truth actually is love. And it states very clearly in the Bible, God is love. And what the Zionists are doing to the people in the Middle East, Christians, Muslims and Jews as well, that is not love. They are operating on hate, and hate is a very dangerous fire, and you'll never fight it with more hate. So look, I'm just going to leave you the link to George Galloway here, who, you know, a good top guy, and also Max Blumenthal of the Grey Zone, who is, you know, absolutely brilliant guy, brilliant news. Support them. Listen to what they're saying and understand what I'm saying as speaking from higher consciousness, not to big myself up as like, oh, I am the chosen one. I tell you now, it isn't an easy thing to be the chosen one in terms of having such a direct experience of a third encounter as well, because I did receive that message of universal law of abundance in compassion via an energy of bliss, as I witnessed before I witnessed the light being, and after and during. And I am sharing this, you know, just as an ordinary person. I'm not asking to be worshipped or, you know, people to follow me. I'm not asking for money. I'm just simply asking you to respect my reality as a human being on this planet who did have an extraordinary experience. And I am trying to share it widely because the world needs it right now. And I have survived through immense hardship, very, very difficult choices that I've had to make in life, immense sacrifices in order to be here this day now to give you that news of an experience. 33 years I have lived with this experience. So on April 26, 1992, I experienced that. And April 26 this year, okay, it will be my 34th birthday since having that experience. And I will again share fully that experience. I've already shared it in one video in 2017. It isn't a very clear video, really. I was very nervous about talking about it in public. And it was one of my among my first videos. So I'm going to share that again because I think it is so important. So I give my love and blessing, God bless to everybody. And please talk about this news now from George Galloway, as he himself received from Max Blumenthal, the Grey Zone. You know, I don't know why I'm not subscribed to it on this channel. It's strange, but that happens. You know, I find that sometimes subscriptions suddenly disappear and I have to resubscribe. And this is the kind of thing that they do, you see, to keep down the algorithm. So you don't hear Max Blumenthal, you don't hear George Galloway. So please, you know, get onto these sites, get onto George Galloway, get onto Max Blumenthal. Oh, I'm still subscribe to George Galloway. So, yeah, love and God bless to everybody. Share the news, people, because it's good news. It is really good news. Universal law of abundance and compassion is fantastic news. And we should all, as a species, be rejoicing.